Yeah, cool. So we are live now. Welcome to our next session. This is with Brian, who's one of the co-founders of Poof Cash, which is built on Celo. He'll be doing a talk on private DeFi powered by zkSNARKs, and I'll let him take it from here.
Thank you. Cool. Hi, everyone. Today, I'm going to be talking about private DeFi powered by zkSNARKs. So I'm going to start off with a bit of background by first asking, why does privacy matter? And I think these three reasons are probably the ones that I feel the strongest about. The first one being surveillance. As we move into a world where we're more digital, more of our activity kind of has a footprint on the internet, it makes it really easy for governments and organizations basically to track everything that we do. And my hope is that this doesn't bring us into like an Orwellian society. The second one is trade secrets. Many businesses have information or like asymmetric information that gives them basically an edge in the business they operate in. And it's important that they're able to preserve that confidentiality even in crypto, blockchain, the internet. And lastly, more philosophically, free will. And I think this one's pretty interesting, where if you think about if you know that somebody is always watching you, do you act differently than if you had known that you have full privacy? So I think that one's interesting, and you can think about a lot more. So the other thing is blockchains. So how does privacy and blockchains kind of tie together? With most blockchains, all transactions are public and traceable, which means that in almost every way, it's pretty hard to hide your identity from everyone. So if you're basically on-ramping on Coinbase and then you send funds to your wallet, Coinbase knows which wallet you own. And then even if you move funds from your wallet into another wallet, it can always be traced and your identity is always in this path. And by design, it's good because that means that everyone can verify these transactions. But on the other hand, there's essentially it's really hard to have privacy. And then this brings me to talking about kind of what are the tools out there today that help with privacy. And the three popular ones that come to mind for me are Zcash, which is its own chain where you can transact Zcash privately or publicly. Monero, which is also its own chain. And then Tornado Cash, which is a privacy protocol built on originally Ethereum, but now on other protocols as well. And Tornado, you can actually exchange not just Ethereum, but other assets and ERC20s supported on the EVM. Cool. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about zkSNARKs. It'll get a little bit technical, but here we go. So the key idea that I want people to come away with is understanding that zkSNARKs allow users to prove that they had computed something while hiding some of the inputs. So the example that isn't perfect, but that I like to use is back in maybe pre-algebra, if you were taking an exam and you have a problem that you need to solve, most of the time your teacher will not just accept the answer, and you need to show your work at every single step of the way until you arrive at your answer. And then teachers, when they grade your exams, they'll probably go step by step. And if they see that each step is correct, then they know that you know how to actually do the problem and you didn't just copy the answer from your friend or from the class before you who had taken the exam. And then kind of what you can do here as the teacher is, if you are grading every single step, it can take a long time. So what you can do is you can decide as a teacher beforehand that you're going to maybe check only a few of those steps. And then that way you're not really seeing everything, but you have a good probability that if you just check a few of the steps and you expect to see you see what you expect to see, then the student most likely did do it right, and you can grade the papers really fast. So zkSNARKs kind of work like this. I think there's other analogies as well. But this allows you to do like things like proving that you hashed a secret number without showing what that secret number is. And then you could also do things like factoring, show that you can factor a number without revealing what those factors are. Just by always showing your work, and then verifiers just make sure that some of the steps are right. So let's also just like see how this can be used in action. And I'm going to use Tornado Cash as the example. So for those who don't know, the way Tornado Cash works is they have different pools, and each pool supports a specific denomination and currency. And so one of these pools might be like the 1 ETH pool, where you can only deposit 1 ETH and you can only withdraw 1 ETH. So this is pretty good for privacy, but it's pretty limited in its functionality. So essentially every deposit into these pools includes a hashed secret. And then after you deposit with that hash secret, the smart contract then holds your funds, and it also stores your hash secret into a Merkle tree. So then what users have to do to withdraw is they have to compute the proof by starting with their secret and the current Merkle tree. And then they hash their secret, and then they verify that that hash exists in the Merkle tree. And so if a user is able to generate a correct proof for this, then the smart contract can actually authorize the user to withdraw the entire deposit, which would be 1 ETH, to any address that they feel like. And so this mechanism basically allows users to make a public deposit, but then when they withdraw, they don't need to tie their original like wallet address to make the withdrawal. They can just prove that they own that withdrawal, and they are allowed to send it anywhere they want. And so that's the basic idea of how Tornado works. Now I'm going to give you kind of a taste of what Poof Cash v2 does and how it kind of like upgrades this functionality. So in Poof Cash v2, instead of just using a secret, we're also going to use a balance. So this would be like your account balance. So then every deposit that you make into Poof Cash v2 includes a hashed balance and secret. And then the hash of the balance and secret gets stored into that same Merkle tree. So then to compute the proof, we start with the balance, secret, a withdrawal amount, and then the current Merkle tree. So the first thing we do is we verify that the withdrawal amount is less than or equal to your current balance. So then that basically constrains it so that way you can't generate a proper proof if that's not the case. And then you hash your balance and secret, and then you verify that that hash exists in the Merkle tree. So then if you can generate a valid proof for this, then you can allow the user to withdraw amount. And so really the innovation in this step makes it so that you can deposit and withdraw any amount that you want. It doesn't just have to be 1 ETH. It can be like 10 ETH, 100 ETH. There's really no limit as long as you actually have those funds. Cool. So this brings me to private DeFi and kind of like what we're building and what's like going to be coming with Poof v2. So the 3 main things that are coming are really modeled after a typical bank. Like, what can you do in a regular bank? Because A, this is intuitive, and B, like there's obviously product market fit for banks. So the first one is private send and receive. So basically allows you to request crypto privately without revealing your public wallet address, and also send crypto privately without revealing your public wallet address. The second one is a private savings account. So when you deposit into Poof v2, it wraps your token into a debt token that's given to a lending platform to earn you interest on that deposit. So you basically have a private balance that also is earning interest at the same time. So you get some more capital efficiency than if you had just deposited into like Tornado with like 1 Ethereum that's earning no interest. And then lastly, the one that's really exciting is loans collateralized on your private savings with 0% interest and no liquidations. So this one's really interesting because it really maximizes your capital efficiency. So if you had a single dollar that you used to deposit into your private savings account, you might be earning like 5% APY. But then if you can continue earning interest and then take out a 0% loan on that $1, then you can basically go and farm with that $1 on other protocols and participate in DeFi. So this allows you basically to have leverage and also participate in privacy preserving mechanisms. I'm gonna go through a quick demo now of how the interface works. And really just like the send and receive part, the loans aspect of it works pretty similarly. Okay, so this is the Poof v2 demo. So this is a fully non-custodial wallet that basically enables users to do all the things I described. So when you come here, you can either enter a private key, and so this supports basically your typical Ethereum private keys, or you can create a new public-private key pair by hitting create a Poof wallet, which we'll do here. So we'll back it up and then assert that we backed it up and then encrypt it to disk. And then here, there's two functions, request and send. And then also we see that we have currently a private balance of 0 because we just haven't funded yet. So the cool thing about private balance is that this is a balance that only you can see because you have the private keys to this account. And this isn't like something that you could just query with balance of, and it's not really easily inspectable if you just look at the smart contract. So here, why don't we just go ahead and generate a link to request 1 CUSD. So this basically generates a proof and just pre-computes the transaction. And then you can send this transaction to basically anyone. We'll open this in a new tab, private tab, and then we'll just complete the request as if we're like somebody else. So 1 CUSD, we're gonna need to connect our wallet, then approve the transaction. And then finally, I think we'll just complete the request. Cool, there we go. So then we fulfill the request. We can look at the transaction. This is a public deposit from that wallet that I just connected into the Poof smart contract, which is the 0x53 address. So then if we go back to our UI, we'll see that our private balance increases by 1. So now that we have a private balance of 1, we can use this private balance to send anything up to $1 to anybody else. So here we're gonna send 10 cents to Brian.nom, and it's gonna go through a relayer, which means that we don't need to connect a wallet to make this transaction. And that's actually pretty important because if you need to make the transaction yourself with your wallet, you need to pay gas and then you just like lose privacy. So we can see here that the relayer did this transaction. It sent just under 10 cents to 0x813, which is the resolution of Brian.nom. And then it sent a little bit of the CUSD to itself. So that way it could basically reimburse itself for paying gas. So there you go. That's basically private send and receive of any amount and like completely built on Celo. All right, going back. All right, so then now I just want to highlight some use cases for this product and kind of just give like users some ideas of how you could really be using this. So first and foremost, I really foresee this as the most primitive layer of DeFi. So right now, I think most people would argue that lending and AMMs are basically like the bottom layer of DeFi, but I think this should really be the bottom layer where everybody starts here and then goes elsewhere. So for users, basically if you have like the L1 token, so in Celo's case, CUSD, CEuro, Celo, you would just deposit into this Poof smart contract And it would work as a private savings account where you're earning interest. And then secondly, from this private savings account, you can be sending crypto to friends, family, or merchants to buy things. And so this is probably like the simplest way to use Poof. So then the second group of users that I have in mind are degens, which arguably most fun group here. But this would basically allow degens to take on leverage to farm PUSD, PEuro, Celo on different DeFi yield protocols while still earning interest in the Poof private savings account and making use of privacy and lending at the same time. And then for the second one is they could also be running trading strategies on undoxed wallets. So if you have some like trade secret trading strategy, you could basically start with your private savings account, seed a new wallet with some funds to trade with. And then whenever you feel like you're being doxed or somebody figures out who you are, just return your funds back into your private savings account and then just reseed a new wallet that you can go around like trading with. And then the third group I think is really like has like huge potential is enterprises and companies. So this would allow you to pretty easily pay your workers and suppliers without revealing anything about your company's financials. And then it could also offer varied price. You could also be offering varied prices across customers and products, which I think oftentimes many like sales people will do, just like give different prices. Cool. So I want to also cover Celo, pretty much like why are we building on Celo and kind of like some things that we really like about the ecosystem. So when looking for somewhere to build Poof v2, there's like 4 factors that are pretty important. So the first one is cheap transaction fees. We're seeing a lot of chains kind of advertise themselves with proof of stake and low gas. And for a good reason, because Ethereum is really expensive to transact on, and nobody, I think, would be using privacy if it cost $10 every time to use it. So it's important that transaction fees are cheap. Secondly, stablecoin support is pretty important because, at least in my opinion, as we go forward, really like mainstream adoption of crypto will probably be more focused on stablecoins. I don't really anticipate seeing people buying like your groceries or other things that you need for your everyday life with Ethereum or Bitcoin. Like stablecoins are there because you don't want prices to change very much. So having good stablecoin support. Third, good liquidity. So it should be easy to get into the ecosystem and get out. And so this is important because like you don't want people to feel like they're locked in, or you don't want to make people feel like there's a really high cost to entry. And then finally, growing ecosystem, which I think is definitely the case for Celo. A lot of new people are building on Celo. But in general, you just want people using that ecosystem, because if they're not, then it's kind of a pain to just go to your ecosystem for one protocol. So this I'm kind of setting up for why Celo, but like those are like factors that Celo really like highlighted really well. So UX, Celo is proof of stake, so this enables low gas. Users can transact on the Celo network only holding stable coins like CUSD and CEuro. So this is really good UX because like people might not know what Celo is and what it's used for, but I think stable coins like USD and Euro are much more familiar to users. And the reason this is possible is because on Celo you can pay for gas with stable coins, which is pretty unique. And it's like one of those subtle things that makes Poof v2 just like all the better on Celo, that you could be using this without owning like any Celo. Third, users can send and receive crypto with phone numbers, just like built in natively. And I think that's super convenient. And then lastly, many options for on and off ramping. And there just continue to be more. So like if you wanted to get into the Celo ecosystem, you could pretty much start at any centralized exchange and now, like leading into bridges, you can basically start on any popular L1 chain and bridge your assets over to the Celo ecosystem. And there's also good AMMs to swap your assets as well. And then finally, being EVM is pretty important in my opinion, because it supports all the existing dev tooling built for Ethereum. And if you want like a thriving ecosystem, you need to like really support builders, and builders need to like feel like they're not being blocked to build more. And I think like being EVM compatible really helps with that, because anything that exists and supported on Ethereum will work for Celo. And so I also want this to tie into kind of how does Poof v2 stack up against these existing incumbents, Tornado and zcash. So the first one, public address masking, all three of these protocols are going to achieve or do already achieve. And this is basically like the main selling point of it, is that you can transact without showing your public address. And then the next one is transact any amount. This is something that, as far as I'm aware, Tornado doesn't support. Zcash supports it, and Poof v2 will also support this. Low transaction fees. On Tornado, it can cost anywhere from like $10 to like $100 to transact, just because of how expensive it is to use Ethereum. On Zcash and Poof v2, transaction costs are on like the order of like 1 cent to like less than 1 cent. Stablecoin support. So I'm pretty sure Tornado also supports DAI and other stablecoins, but you can't pay for gas with those. So you probably need to hold some Ethereum in your wallet. Zcash, as far as I'm aware, doesn't support stablecoins. Poof v2 will be supporting stablecoins, and you can also pay for your transactions with stablecoins. So there's no need to own other assets either. Yeah, pay gas with stablecoins. And then interest-bearing, Tornado Cash and zcash don't really support interest-bearing assets. Poof v2 will basically give you interest-bearing assets under the hood. You don't need to like actually do any wrapping yourself. And then finally, leverage. Only Poof v2 has this, and this is why we're calling this private DeFi, because like we think this really changes the game here. Cool. Closing words. I want to give a huge thank you to the Poof Cash team and the community for pretty much like getting us this far. I'm really excited for what's ahead, and the support from the team and the community has just been tremendous. And finally, also the Celo ecosystem. If you guys haven't checked out the Celo ecosystem, I would highly encourage it. I've met many incredible people, and I just love working here. So yeah, just wanted to include that. And then finally, questions and comments. The Poof Cash Twitter, Discord, and Telegram can all be found on our landing page, poof.cash. If you're looking for me, my Twitter is @BrianVLee, and my email is brian@poof.cash. And that's actually it for me.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. This was great. I think we have one question, which is any ETA on release timing?
Oh, yeah. Let's see. Our hope is to get something out in around like 2 weeks, like mid-October. And most likely this would probably be like a invite-only beta. But soon after that, I think once things look to like stabilize, we would be like looking to open it up general availability.
Cool. I think there's one more question, which is more about Celo and how you can transfer funds using phone numbers.
Got it. More about the tech involved in transferring funds. I'm not like deeply familiar with it, but I roughly know how it works. So basically, when users by default do get wallet addresses, and then when they can attest their phone numbers and like basically tie their phone number with their wallet address through this thing called an attestation service, which validators on the Celo network run. And then once you basically attest that you own the phone number and you want to attach it to this wallet address, the attestation service verifies that, and then you can, and then basically you have a wallet address that can be tied to your phone number, and then people can send you like funds using your phone number. When do you expect to go live on mainnet? That was the October 15th date I gave. TBD still, but that's what we're shooting for. What's my background? My background is mostly as an engineer. I had worked in the Bay Area for a few years at a tech startup. And then I really got into DeFi maybe last year and just wanted to like dive deep into it. And that's why I'm here today. And then how did you come to think? Yeah, so initially Poof.Cash was a fork of Tornado. And it was an interesting problem because Celo didn't really have any privacy protocols at the time. So that seemed like an obvious way to just bring value. But after building it and just seeing how much users struggled with the UX and not really like using it for privacy, I just thought to myself, like, what are some of the limitations and how can we potentially overcome them? And so that led to kind of like, how can we improve the protocol? And that finally led to like, hey, like we could be building this V2 thing that, and then like now, like we actually have something working like internally that we're just basically trying to stabilize now. What chains are you interested in moving to and why? Gas cost, transaction speed, etc. So Celo was definitely top of mind just because we had already been in the ecosystem. Some other ones were, so Ethereum was definitely like one of the chains that we were considering for launching V2 as well. Some reasons we didn't want to build on Ethereum were high gas costs, and also just like it would be hard to support like stable coins basically. And we think like stable coins are super important. The other one is Solana. Like, I think that's one that has a ton of liquidity right now and a ton of attention, which like made us interested. But I think like the main limitation with it is just like the dev tooling. I think it's getting a lot better and it's good. But a lot of existing work was already done on Solidity and kind of like EVM tools. So a lot of that stuff would have to be migrated, and it's not like super trivial. It's like fine to be migrating like Solidity stuff, but some of the zkSNARKs and circuits are I think like not as trivial to migrate. So that just takes more thought and time. And we just wanted to pretty much like get something out the door and just see what the traction would be like. So, so those are really like the contenders in my mind at the time. Yeah, I think that's everything.
Cool. Thanks, Brian. This was a really great talk. We're going to transition to the next session now.
Sounds good. Thank you for having me.